All right, so you know how we did that video on Elon Musk recently? And he said that his trans daughter was dead because of the woke mob. And then we found out that that was not the case. It just his biological son transitioned and now is his daughter, and that's fine. There should be nothing wrong with that. His daughter's 20 years old, right? And he does this whole, my son was dead. My son was dead and the woke mob killed them. Well, did you know that Vivian decided that it would be a good idea to talk about this? Vivian decided it would be a good idea to actually speak up about this whole situation. So let's go ahead and get into that. Let's go ahead and talk about what happened here. All right? So, a lot of people have had this post up. I'm just grabbing this one from Evan Loves Wolf. But Vivian is the one where this is coming from. She begins this post saying, there's a lot of stuff that I need to debunk, which I will get to, don't worry. But I want to start with what I find to be the funniest, which is the notorious, slightly autistic tweet. This is going to be a bit, so just bear with me. This, of course, where Elon Musk said, my son was born gay and slightly autistic, two attributes that contribute to gender dysphoria. I know that from when they were about 4 years old and they would pick out clothes for me to wear, like a jacket, and tell me it was fabulous, as well as their love for musicals and theater, but they were not a girl. So first of all, we just have a ton of gay stereotypes there, right? Not all gay people are good at fashion, and I think that the only time that we should be making those kind of stereotypical jokes are when it is meant to be endearing, as opposed to meant to be throwing a trans person under the fucking bus, right? Senna says, oh, fucking Musk again. Yes, it is. Right? Like, I'm not gay. I've only ever dated women and femme-presenting people, and, Musk here. Yeah, you're gay if you like musicals and theater. Well, I was a kid in drama class, and I was also really into musicals, and still am. So, I guess I must be fucking gay, I guess. Axo says, Vosh is good at fashion, and he's gay and autistic. Stop says, dude, your kid was a theater kid. Do you know how many straight theater kids exist? Yup. So Vivian goes and says, this is entirely fake. Like, literally, none of this ever happened. Ever. I don't even know where he got this from. My best guess is that he went to the Milo Indianapolis School of Gay Stereotypes, just picked out some at random and said, good enough, in a last-ditch attempt to garner sympathy points when he is so obviously in the wrong, even in his own fucking story. Vivian says, I did not have a love of musicals in theater when I was 4 because I was fucking 4. I didn't know what these things were. My earliest real experiences with musicals was when my twin brother had a Hamilton phase in 8th and 9th grade and overplayed it so much in the car to the point where for a long time I swore off the entire genre. You know, I get that. I feel that. Anytime that I discover a new musical that I hyperfixate on, I may annoy everybody with music. I have sat in the middle of a magic pod humming Has Been Hotel songs to the point where somebody actually told me to stop in the middle of the pod. It was Bimmingham who told me to stop. I'll shame him for that. But no, that was I understand this whole thing, because like if you are a big musical person, when you fixate on one, it is just all in your head. I was singing the murder song from Reefer Madness for like 6 months afterwards. I still have stuff from Has Been Hotel stuck in my head right now. Like I like musicals. And when musicals, I get... Steven Universe is a big one. Like, I was huge into Steven Universe for a super long time. And all of the music from that show is just fan-fucking-tastic. And I've probably ruined most of those songs for many people around me. But it's okay. I don't care. Suck it up, Buttercup. You'll deal with it. But that's not what we're talking about here. We just went on a tangent of my own hyperfixations. So then Vivian says, I never picked out jackets for him to wear, and I was most certainly not calling them fabulous, because literally, what the fuck? I did not use the word fabulous when I was 4, because once again, I would like to reiterate, I was 4. Like, this is so obvious, I don't even think it warrants an explanation, but apparently people believe this nonsense, so here I am. So I will say it does deserve clarification, because when I was 4, I was calling various places that I went to quaint. Like, I was using really, like, strange words for my age, mostly because I was at Pensacola Christian Academy, and we were taught to read at a very, very early age because they wanted us with our noses in the Bible. So, what are you going to do? Thank you for the hydrate. Eric Knox said, headed out for the night. Take care, Suris. Don't let your brain melt. I will do my best. So I do think it does merit explanation. Again, in my experience, I was a very weird kid when it came to the words that I used. Vivian then says, this entire thing is completely made up, and there's a reason for this. He doesn't know what I was like as a child, because he quite simply wasn't there. And in the little time that he was, I was relentlessly harassed for my femininity and queerness. Obviously, he can't say that, so I've been reduced to a happy little stereotype gaying along to use at his discretion. I think that says a lot about how he views queer people and children in general. I don't know if I would necessarily say that Elon Musk is a homophobe, but I have seen non-homophobes say some weird shit, right? Let me give you an example. There was a person who used to be a friend of mine. We had a falling out at one point because they thought that my partner at the time shouldn't have gotten a surgery that removed their... removed a lot of feminine parts from inside them that were literally causing them shit tons of pain constantly. So it made sense to get rid of them. This person had a lot to say about that, said that they should have tried to have kids even if it might have potentially killed them. I got reasonably very angry at them for saying that, and it shattered our friendship. I've never had a screaming match with one of my friends until that moment. However, this person did say something interesting that was a red flag really early on. They were a very conservative person, but they also had a lot of gay and trans friends, so it was a weird, like, mix when it came to hanging out with them. But one day when they were a little drunk, they were always a little drunk, let's be honest, we had a conversation with them about, hey, what would you do if one of your kids turned out to be gay? I think it was specifically his son we talked about. Because his kids hung out with us a lot. They were like 8 and 10, and one of them was really big into collecting Pokemon cards, and I was one of the ones that helped teach him how to play the Pokemon card game for the little brief time that he wanted to do that. So that conversation happened, and the immediate reaction from this person was saying, I'd feel like a failure. And for a lot of people who are in conservative mindsets, that's a pretty unanimous thing for a lot of people to feel. Because they feel like somehow they have an influence over the sexuality of their kid, and they feel like their kid will be more successful if they can start a family and have the life that they had. Now, let's ignore the fact that gay people have a million ways of starting a family, but none of that is important for this particular story. The important part here is that in his case, he was a conservative guy who grew up as part of a construction firm effectively and had spent his entire time around that brand of people. And he would view his son as a failure or him as a father being a failure to his son if his son turned out to be gay. I mean, after all, what would all the people on the construction site say? I have friends who have worked in construction, and I'm just going to go ahead and say they are some of those sites are some of the least progressive places on the planet. So it makes sense that his mentality would go there. This was reinforced to him year after year after year after year, and it was something that we tried to talk to him about fairly frequently to try to get him to budge on a little bit, to try to get him to, grow as a person. And to his credit, for a long time he did, until that falling out happened. I don't know if he's become a better person past then, but I bring him up here as an example because I can understand Elon Musk doing this as well. After all, on the scale of gay and trans and straight, A lot of conservative parents would rather their kids be straight, but if they had a choice between their kid being gay and trans, many of them would probably want their kid to be gay. That doesn't mean that that's right, that doesn't mean that that's okay, but I think if you are a conservative in my audience, you might be able to even echo that thought. Now, there's a couple reasons for this, obviously. There's a lot of bigotry towards trans people that has learned behavior for a lot of people, but there's an aspect of this that I don't think is talked about as well. Because trans people are so harassed in the political climate right now, from just a purely, and I'm not saying this is Musk specifically, but the only defense I could even think about for a parent is that if their kid is straight and has that like heteronormative lifestyle, the likelihood of things blowing back on them is much lower than if they are gay. And if they are gay, the likelihood of things blowing back on them is much lower than if they are trans. Trans people are ridiculously marginalized in our society right now. So there is a tiny bit of sympathy I have for that position, where somebody as a parent wants their kid to live the best life possible and knows realistically in our current political climate that trans people don't get to live that best life compared to everyone else, which really fucking sucks. I don't think that's the case with Musk, though. With his kind of money and power and influence, he could have basically paved the way for his kid to have any kind of life she wanted, and instead he chose bigotry. You see, your kid having a hard life in these regards only really matters if you are not able to, by default, make sure those kids have a good life. A working class parent, it's a roll of the die. Elon Musk, he's a multi-billionaire. There's no roll of the die there for him. He could have made Vivian's life 12,000 times easier by just not being a bigot. Instead, he chose to ostracize himself from his own kid. And people praise Elon Musk and then get mad at certain content creators for abandoning their kids when the details of that particular situation don't really matter here. The thing that matters is it's really fucking hypocritical when Elon Musk did the same goddamn thing. But, wow, my Stream Deck is struggling to go through this. Vivian then goes on to say, as for if I'm not a woman, sure, Jan, whatever you say. I'm legally recognized as a woman in the state of California, and I don't concern myself with the opinion of those who are below me. Obviously, Elon can't say the same, because in a ketamine-fueled haze, he's desperate for attention and validation from an army of degenerate red-pilled incels and pick-me's who are quick to give it to him. Go touch some fucking grass. And then somebody pointed out, extremely shocked to hear this douchebag is a liar. Hope you're not too bothered by what he says about you. Vivian follows up with, I'm not. I've just started to find it funny calling me dead on a podcast with Jordan Peterson of all people, while basically admitting you have zero reading comprehension by saying you were tricked into signing documents that you read over multiple times, is basically a parody of itself. Like, it's honestly camp. Now, as for the documents thing, Vivian, from what I understand, was able to start hormone replacement therapy at the young age of 16. You know, the age that we're fine putting kids in cars, giant steel death machines that if they make one wrong turn, it'll just blow up and kill them. We're perfectly okay with that, but, you know, when it comes to HRT, something that generally we do not, we don't give to anybody who's super young in the first place, I think 16 is a perfectly reasonable time to start that, especially when you consider that it is better to have puberty blockers early. We can get into the mechanics of transitioning in another video. I've done it billions of times. Fuck it, we'll get into it now. Elon Musk tries to make the claim that he was tricked into this while his kid was so young and so vulnerable, but the kid actually had entirely informed consent in this particular regard because they were on the cusp of adulthood at the ripe old age of 16. Again, the age that we put people in cars, giant steel death machines that will just blow up if you run them the wrong way into a wall. So when it comes to transitioning, for kids, we only let them socially transition until about 11 or 12. And we only let them start taking puberty blockers until they already have signs of puberty. And then they're on puberty blockers for like 5 fucking years, which usually means they get off of puberty blockers at about 17 years old, sometimes 16 if they had early onset puberty. Early onset puberty for cis kids is also something we use puberty blockers for. Or when a kid has early onset breast cancer, we use puberty blockers for those too to prevent the estrogen from coming in and, you know, giving the cancer something to feed off of. So, with that understood, we don't even allow surgery until somebody's been on HRT for usually at least a year, but most times multiple years. Because when it comes to surgeries, we have to make sure that a body is not going to change and morph itself in a way that is going to be disadvantageous for the patient. After all, if you get breast implants and then you start growing actual breasts under those, what happens if you grow D cups on top of your surgically created D cups? Well, you break your back. That's what happens. What happens if you get phalloplasty and then suddenly everything gets really fucked up down there because you've been on HRT? HRT changes the way that your body distributes fat. It changes the way that your body sends anything to genitals. It changes the way that your body operates in a billion fucking ways. So any surgeries that we do, any permanent changes we do to the body, almost always have to happen after somebody has been on HRT for an amount of time, so we know what kind of body the doctor's actually working with. After all, the body that they're working with pre-HRT is not the body you're gonna have after 2 years on estradiol. But that said, this whole situation is sad. It's sad to see a parent who so hates their child that they are willing to go so far as to call them dead on a political extremist show instead of just forming a fucking relationship with their kid. Stop says, also not to mention, fallow isn't easy to get. Ask me how I know. So, if you are watching this and you're a parent, I want you to ask yourself, truly and honestly, what would you do if you found out your kid was trans? Would you support them? Would you be a good parent? Or would you do what Elon Musk is doing and basically cut them out of your life entirely? Let me know in the comments section below. Hit the like button if you haven't already. Send this video to a friend if you think that this will interest them. And as always, insert end of video tagline here. Hey, I just quickly want to give a thank you to all of my wonderful patrons who keep this show running. YouTube and Twitch are a pretty bumpy ride at the best of times, and the stability a Patreon provides me is worth more than I can say here. I'd also like to thank each and every one of my $20 and up patrons here, and they would be Red Joker, Britzkrieg, Cameron, Dren, Jemshin, Smiling DM, Poundini, Mabbity Babbity, Naomi, Isaac, Agamotto, Jordan, Ravi, Giuni, Kiratorian, Prisma, all of you, I'm not saying that part, and Starlight. And finally, thank you to everyone else that helps keep this channel alive. While you're here, why not check out another video? And thank you for watching.